All right, guys. So let's talk a little bit about Chris Evans. Somehow Chris Evans returned to Marvel. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but the big announcement is that Chris Evans is set to return in Avengers Doomsday alongside Iron Man himself, Robert Downey Jr., who's a different type of Iron Man. He's Doctor Doom now. But it's kind of interesting because they made a big deal about passing the torch from Chris Evans to Anthony Mackie. And basically Anthony Mackie's headlining the new Captain America movie, Captain America Brave New World. And we've talked about this on the show before about how problematic that movie is turning out to be for Marvel. And so my thinking is that they're basically trying to bring Chris Evans back because they realize their mistake. And Chris Evans hasn't been lighting up the box office since he left Marvel. And so like, we talked about like, why is Henry Cavill a star? It's like, why is Chris Evans even on Hollywood's A-list? Because like, he doesn't open movies, right? The only movies he's able to open is Captain America. So him coming back to Marvel seems like an admission of error or defeat by both the studio and the actor himself. But Sean, I'd like to get your take on this. Why do you think Chris Evans is going to be coming back to the Avengers franchise?
Well, first off, I think it's funny that the headlines were Chris Evans finally returning to the MCU after 5 months. Yeah. He's in Deadpool Wolverine 5 months ago, and he's finally going to be back in another Avengers movie since he was also in the last Avengers movie. So we haven't like skipped over anything. He's just back. Like, I think you can look at his box office track record, and he hasn't done anything interesting, and he's done these big blockbusters that were just so generic that they're just forgettable. Was that the Gray Man with the Russos, and then Red One, and he's been in stuff. Was he in Ghosted? Like, just all of the prime examples of the streaming movies that are the epitome of like, was this written by AI? Was this just optimized for streaming platforms? That's what he stars in. And so he's out there, but he hasn't done a single thing that pops besides being, I guess, in Knives Out, which is an ensemble film. Like nothing in 5 years. So naturally he wants to stay at that status. An Avengers movie is going to be the movie that's going to be Ripples. So it's pretty obvious why he wants to come back. And I wouldn't even mind him. Like the idea that he would come back for Secret Wars, I was always assuming that was going to be everybody comes back for it. But the way that all of this is playing out, that they're not promoting it based on the new Avengers because nobody even knows who they are. Nobody cares who they are. All of the announcements for the next Avengers movies are like, hey, look, the old Avengers are coming back, which is just an admission that they haven't developed any new talent or any new stars in 5 years. And so it's tough for it to not just come off just so desperate on every front.
Yep. Odin, do you think that by doing this, because we've been very adamant about how Marvel has just been screwing the pooch, and yes, Deadpool 3 was kind of like a glimmer of hope, but Marvel really didn't have much to do with that movie, right? So is this an admission that basically they realize that they've been going in the wrong direction?
Not really, because kind of going back to it with what's been said already, this really isn't going to move the needle at all. Like even Robert Downey Jr., as much as I like him, and there's a lot of other people in general who like him and like his movies, he is not someone, and this is really the age of Hollywood. There's no one in Hollywood that they themselves being in a movie can make a film be a huge success. It depends on the kind of movie they're in. It depends on when it's being released, how it's being marketed. Like there's a myriad of factors that result in whether a film can really take off the ground in any way. So just having Chris Evans in the film is not going to be enough to be able to bring things back from the brink. Just like having Robert Downey Jr. back and now in a different role is not going to bring things back from the brink either. So I really wouldn't say that it's much of a admission, because if they're just going to bring these actors back and try to have the actors themselves be the selling point, then guess what? That's not going to be enough, because even with Robert Downey Jr., they're not bringing him back as Iron Man. They're bringing him back as a different character. Okay, well, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, that's weird. No, thank you. And then the others will say, oh, Chris Evans, he's coming back. Okay, in what way? We don't know yet. Oh, okay, I don't care about that, right? So I mean, unless they were going to just scrap everything and start over again or start, continue on the story. But even then, right, because there's been so much nonsense that has been released on Disney Plus, most especially, and even theatrically as well, with only a couple of positive things like Deadpool and Wolverine being one of them, you're not really going to, I think, they're never going to admit their own faults. We've seen this with Disney Star Wars and Lucasfilm, and I think Marvel is no different in this capacity. There might be stuff happening behind the scenes, but these announcements alone are not going to be enough.
Well, they're just gimmicks. They're just gimmicks. Like
Yeah.
Spider-Man: No Way Home, Deadpool and Wolverine, really enjoyed the movies, but they're basically gimmicks. They're fun events for the fans. They're very enjoyable, but it's a gimmick. Look, we brought something back. And that's what they're doing now with Avengers movies. It's not we built up to a great story. It's, hey, look, they're back, which is just a gimmick.
Yeah, Brian, one of the big announcements that they made when they said that they were bringing Robert Downey Jr. back as an alternate Tony Stark, who's actually Doctor Doom as opposed to Iron Man, is they basically said that Doctor Doom was going to be the main character of the new Avengers, just like Thanos was the main character of Avengers Endgame, right? Or Avengers Infinity War, I should say. And there's a lot of speculation about the character that Chris Evans is going to be when he's coming back. So a lot of people are speculating that he's going to be Captain America, but he's going to be the Captain America who was the Hydra agent, as opposed to, like the Captain America we all know and love. So what do you have any speculation? Because you're kind of tapped into like the comic book scene when it comes to movies. Do you have any speculation on like what type of Captain America Chris Evans is going to be playing?
Yeah, they can bring back anyone. Comic books are so convoluted, but specifically the Secret Wars stuff allows them a lot of freedom to sort of bring back whatever characters they want. And that doesn't mean those characters are going to stick around. It could be the Hydra version. That would be cool. But I think that would also, that would be cool for fans, like comic book fans. But for normies, I think they would not like that. They would not like to see Captain America as bad Captain America. That's for sure. So they might just do the time travel, timey-wimey stuff. Like, hey, look, there's a version of Cap that exists right now, like during these events. That's staying out of it. So they can utilize him. They can also put him in a different character. Someone earlier was saying something that I agree with. We are not fans of Chris Evans. Like we're fans of Henry Cavill. I'll watch Henry Cavill on anything. I don't really care about Chris Evans. I don't mind him. I actually liked Red One, but not because of Chris Evans. Like that could have been played by literally anyone, and it wouldn't have changed the movie for me. So when they announce he's coming back, and they don't announce like what he's coming back as, that's the rub. Like I don't really care. Like if he's gonna end up being some other character, like the character that he played that I like is Captain America. If you take that and you flip it on its head and you make it Nazi Captain America, it doesn't work for me. Yeah, I don't. Now I would like to see that as a comic book fan. I would like to see those interactions, but I don't think they have the balls to do it because normies wouldn't like it.
I mean, if they have that character, though, we would want him to be played by Chris Evans, right?
Yes. Yeah, if they end up having bad Captain America, then yes, we would like to see him played like Chris Evans, so it matches.
Yeah.
But I don't think they have the balls to do it. I think normies are going to freak out about it.
But Brian, you talked about briefly how like we like Henry Cavill because we like him as a person. He's genuine, like he's nerdy, he's one of us, and so he's built a loyal fan base just around his personality. With Chris Evans, you have almost the exact opposite, where he's been very hostile towards fans who don't share his political beliefs. He's been very condescending. Like he's basically someone who believes that his poop don't stink, and anyone who doesn't like him is wrong. Do you think that could play a factor when it comes to him returning to the MCU? Because he was on pretty good behavior up until after like he was out of his contract, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it could. It'd be funny to see how quiet he is leading up to this next big contract with Disney. I bet you he definitely keeps his social media a little cleaner. He's not as opinionated, I'm sure. I mean, he's not a dumb guy. So, I could totally see him relaxing his extremely hot, toxic takes until he gets that next contract.
Was Chris Evans in that movie in that clip thing they did for Kamala Harris? Was he in
Yes, yes, he was.
Of course he was.
Yeah.
I didn't rember because there was a couple of them
Down with
weren't in it.
democracy.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
actually the producer
Down
of
with
that.
democracy. Oh, okay.
It was his idea.
It was Thor wasn't in that, right? And
Correct.
Yeah, neither was Ant-Man.
Right. Okay. So yeah, that was
Or Chris Pratt. Star-Lord.
right.
Yeah,
Okay.
just the core Avengers, I guess.
Yeah. For Hemsworth, he's not American, so that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. He's an Aussie. Right.
Yeah, he's like, hey, Thor, come do this thing. He's like, I don't know about that. Everything over there seems a little toxic, mate. I'm like,
I want people to like me. Yeah.
I'm not a great actor, but people like me generally. So I think I'm going to keep my thing over here.
He's
going.
a good actor. Come on now.
He's not a great actor.
He's great. He was Furiosa, best movie ever, dude. Come on.
Oh yeah, he was great in Furiosa.
He was good in Furiosa. He was not great.
He wasn't the problem with Furiosa. We could say
he
that
was not
much.
the problem with Furiosa. That's for sure.
Well,
It was that nose. It was that prosthetic.
That's crazy.
it was those weird nipple clamps. Dutch,
What? That was my favorite part, the nipple clamps.
we know, Sean, you and your Christmas pajama bottoms. Yeah, there you go. Dutch, do you think that Chris Evans coming back to Marvel is actually going to bring people back to the theater? Because Marvel's done a lot of damage to their brand in terms of like just the crap they've been putting out.
I think the simple answer to your question is yes. I think them bringing back some of the fan favorites is going to put a few extra butts in the seats. That is 100% fact. It's probably a smart move because I think they're going to find out that Anthony Mackie is not going to fill theaters here very soon when this movie gets released, and they're going to need some of their original Avengers to come back and sell some tickets to some of these movies. So I think Chris Hemsworth is probably just the first one that they're going to end up bringing back. I think we'll probably see more, to be perfectly honest.
You mean Chris Evans?
Or Chris Evans? Yeah. So.
Well, they already brought back Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, they'll probably bring back Scarlett soon from some other alternate universe, and Jeremy Renner will be back. We're just going to get the whole gang back together and make another Avengers movie with the Fantastic Four or something. You might as well.
Are you going to see this when it comes out?
Well, why not? Sure, I'll go see it.
Okay.
I mean,
I want to ask the panel in general. So, like, if Captain America: Brave New World basically just shits the bed, how do you think that's going to affect things moving forward?
I mean, they've
Not going
already
to affect anything.
yeah, I mean, they've already lost like a lot of money on other projects, and it really won't, I don't think, affect too much because, I mean, this year really for them, I think, was really important. Like for a film like for Disney overall, for Inside Out to be this biggest movie of the year, for Deadpool Wolverine now to also be up there, for Moana 2 to also be trending very, very well worldwide for them. I think that this is kind of like in their mind probably a bit of a comeback. I do think they're going to come back down to earth with this specific film release. It will remind me, I think, a bit of what happened with Multiverse of Madness, where obviously it was Sony's success in Spider-Man, but in Spider-Man No Way Home, it was also one where they had 25% of the budget responsibility in that specific deal, in that specific instance, and so they were somewhat involved in that process then. But with that being said, right, they soon after that had this massive disappointment in Multiverse of Madness, and after this massive $450 million opening weekend, it dropped off like a cliff because the film sucked. So I think that probably happened with this movie, if I had to guess. But they're just going to keep rolling along. I mean, until they actually start to fire people and people at like the very, very top of the food chain, and start to have some real changes. I mean, I don't think they're changing because even though, as I mentioned before, at some point you gotta move on with projects that are losses. They do still have a lot of money, not as much as a Amazon or as an Apple, but they do still have a ton of money.
Yeah, and Sean, I don't know if you've been keeping score on the Captain America: Brave New World front, but it's had 4 disastrous test screenings. It's gone multiple rounds of reshoots. Tom Connors likes to joke they only reshot 3 things: the first act, the second act, and the third act. So what's your take on Brave New World? Do you think it's going to be a huge disaster for Marvel?
I mean, they clearly are well aware that this thing's a big, gigantic problem. They delayed it a year, and they keep doing reshoots. They keep tests, and it came out of that era where it's like they were just microwaving scripts and hiring the craziest people. Dude, like they got the guy that directed Cloverfield Paradox and went, here's $200 million to do a Captain America movie. And then the reaction to Falcon and the Winter Soldier was not very good. And the issue was so much the writing. So like, let's get those guys to write the script and the guy that did Cloverfield Paradox to direct it. What did you think was going to happen? Like, what did you expect? And so then they get a movie that tests horribly. And then you're trying to fix something that the foundation isn't very good. Like I never had any problem with Steve handing the shield to Sam, but then they've everything they've done with that, I think it's terrible. And even if like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, there were even ideas in there that you can just sit here and crapshoot a better version based off ideas that were in the show, but they just gave it to the bad writers. And so they're trying to fix a thing that was never going to work because they started off of a very broken foundation and they trusted the wrong people to make it. So they've known this thing is a mess for a while. The question is, after they saw what happened with the Marvels and they've talked about doing actual showrunners for their TV shows, will they actually course correct? And it takes a long time to course correct with these projects that take years to make. So this one was greenlit in the middle of all of the insanity, and so you're still seeing all of that.